This is going to be my most unscripted video so far. So, February was kind of rough emotionally and internally for me. You know, when you start the year very, very high, very optimistic. I said that in my last video, I was like, I'm very optimistic about this year. And then days go by, your optimism just starts dwindling. That's definitely been my experience this year. I was very optimistic, and then life just happens. And it's not even like really big things. Actually, you know what? This is the thing. Nothing happened. That is why my optimism started going down. I was very stressed about a few different things, and I'm finding now that I also have to fight for the life that I want. So I can't be like, oh, I'm too busy working, I'm too busy doing this, and so I don't have time to do anything else. I have to be intentional about creating the life I want, really, like going after opportunities, taking time to be creative. I said in my last video too, that I think it's really important to take time out to do things that you know you're supposed to be doing, even if they don't benefit you in any way. As long as you know you're supposed to be doing them, I think it's important for your soul to be doing them. And so I still am trying very hard to do that, to take time out of my life to be creative and to pursue opportunities and to actually like go meet up with people and live a more well-rounded life. And I found that to be very exhausting. I can't say that I'm too busy and then keep being in a situation that I know I want to be different. I think I have to do something about that. Drop time management advice in the comment section. I truly, truly need it. But it hasn't even just been about fighting for the life I want. I realize for me, it's also been about fighting for hope. When my life as I can see it right now doesn't look like what I want it to be like, doesn't look like the things that I dream for myself, I'm realizing that I have to fight to hope for better, and even have to fight to stop thinking like, oh, how can I say I want this, or how can I imagine that this could happen to me. Like, I have to be very intentional about continuing to hope. And that has also been hard for some reason. I want to explore that more actually. I have some ideas on on things to say about that in a later video. But even though February was kind of exhausting for me, I did do some really amazing things in the month. For example, I got invited by my friends at Screenfish, shout out to you guys, to a very special Black History Month screening of the film Village Keeper, which was written and directed by the wonderful Karen Chapman. And I really mean that when I say she's wonderful. She was at the screening, and just listening to her speak and speaking to her really lifted my spirits. And I know a lot of people's spirits who were in that room. Jean, who is played by Olunike Adeliyi, is a widow who lives in what I like to call ends, and she lives there with her mom and her two children, Tamika and Tristan. Jean is working very hard to get her family out of that place, and she's also very overprotective, especially of her kids, because they are still grieving the loss of their husband and father. As the film goes on, the family uncovers a lot of generational trauma that I truly wasn't expecting, and Jean also goes through a healing process, which I think was so beautiful to see on screen. Jean is the titular village keeper in this movie, and Karen Chapman actually says that it's based on her mother and who she saw kind of her mother and women to be. Also, happy International Women's Month. So Jean is that figure. She really wants to take care of her family and her community, but also she is very, very overprotective. She seems to have this need to control as much as she can, but kind of because she knows she can't control a lot. Like, something really traumatic has happened to her, and so she wants to make sure that she has this sense that everything else is going to be fine. And so she tries her best to keep everything else and everyone else at what she would consider to be a stable level. And obviously that's not going well for her or for her family. She is definitely carrying a lot on her shoulders. It's one thing for you to go through a lot by yourself, going through trauma, going through grief, but then it's another thing for you to go through all of that when there are people who are depending on you to show up a certain way. Or when you feel that there are people who are depending on you to show up a certain way, which are two different things. And I think things that have two different effects. Something I really loved about seeing Jean's healing process on screen was that we saw her do things that people might consider very small things. She's sitting in nature outside. She's writing and journaling. She's eating dessert, which she would normally save for for her kids. These are small things that may not seem like big deals, but they are part of what helps her get back to wholeness, get back to a whole version of herself, or start that process anyway. And I was thinking about that in relation to how this past month has been for me. And I was thinking about it a few weeks ago. I realized that I say I'm a wannabe theater kid, right? Like, I wish I was a theater kid. I don't think I am, but I would like to say that I am. But I love doing like the theater kid things. I play the ukulele and I play the keyboard and I like to sing and dance in my room. These are things I do by myself, really, that I just really, really enjoy. Even though I look kind of silly, but I really enjoy them. I have a lot of fun doing them. They're things that I consider to be a very innate part of myself. They're not anything I'm doing for any reason. Like, I'm not trying to become a singer. I'm not trying to become an actress. I like doing this in my room, so I do it. And I realized a few weeks ago that since the start of this year, I hadn't done any of that really until the end of February. I hadn't played my ukulele. I still haven't. I hadn't played my keyboard. I hadn't just sung because I wanted to. It's not the right term. I hadn't sung. Whatever. And it was even so significant for me because there was one day where I truly was just like done. Like, I felt like you're overthinking too much. You're putting too much pressure on your head. You need to go take a break. And so I did the theater kid thing, and I went and played the keyboard and I sang show tunes. But that was the first time this year that I had done it. And it was significant because the next day when I woke up, I truly just had this sense of like freedom and peace, which again is an artsy thing to say, but I was like, I just felt a little bit of a release of all the things that I was holding on to. And that's something I always find very interesting, is this idea of being an adult and how when you're a kid, you're allowed to do those kind of silly things. You're allowed to play. And then you see a lot of adults all of a sudden who aren't doing those things and who seem to be more miserable than when they were children, obviously because they have so many more responsibilities. And for a while I was like, well, that's weird because I still like singing, dance and whatever. But I think this year is the first time I truly was like, oh, I understand that feeling of I'm just too busy. Like, I'm too busy doing these things. And when I'm not doing anything, I'm thinking about all the things that need to be fixed and all the things that need to happen for life to go a certain way, for me to know that I am good or that my family is good. And that takes up so much of your time and your energy that you're not playing anymore. You're not doing the you things anymore that children are allowed to do, and children do because they don't really have that many responsibilities. So I finally got that this year. And then I finally understood how much more important it is to just take time out for those things. And that's also something I find interesting too, is that in my last video when I was saying take time out for things that you know you should be doing, even if they're not really, paying you or benefiting you significantly, I think I was still thinking kind of like, but they can in the future, like, oh, I'm going to take time out to write because I want to be a writer. So even though right now, if I'm writing 2 pages or a page, it's not paying me anything right now, in the future it will, or I would have honed this skill. But I think also just take time out to play. Take time out to just be in tune with yourself, be in tune with the things around you, and to just like release. Sometimes that's good. I think all the time that's good. That's something that I found beautiful about Jean's healing process, that it wasn't just like this list of things she had to do to get better. Like, oh, confront this trauma and go speak to this person or whatever, which are things that are good and definitely can help you overcome things. She just needed also to get back to who she was with the small, insignificant things. And I found that very beautiful. And it was very healing for her and very healing for me to just watch that, to be like, sometimes you just need to go touch grass. That's what you need to do. With the idea of village keeping your community, watching over your community, I find that a lot of people who are that way, who are the people that take care of others, that take care of the community, of whole groups of people, they also tend to be people that don't necessarily show their struggles. But we find time and time again that those ideas, the idea that, oh, I have to make sure that everything is fine, this depends on me, if I'm not here, everything is going to fall apart. First of all, those are very unhealthy thoughts to think. They're also not true. And I think that the idea of village keeping is community based. I think it takes a village to keep a village. And that's also something that I've personally been learning. There are days in the past few weeks where I've had to be aware of my own shortcomings, not in a way that I wasn't aware of them before, but I had to be like, sometimes you're wrong, right? Sometimes you don't have the answers. Sometimes you can't do anything. You don't know what to do. You don't have the capacity to do anything. And you have to be okay with those truths and then okay with letting those things go and letting the people who are able to do something about those things do them. I think when there are people who see themselves as the champion of the village, the champion of the community solely, it never really goes well for them. If we're going to take care of a community, the community has to do it. The question then also is, how do you, if you're someone who does that, if you're someone who struggles to let people in, how do you do that? Honestly, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But I think a good first step is confronting those shortcomings, being aware of them and being okay with them. They're fine. It's okay. You're just one person. And when you do that, then you're able to see, okay, this other person's good in this area. This other person is good in this area. Let's work together. Let me step back. If you guys have any advice on letting people in, if you have any advice on involving the community and taking care of the community, please let me know. What do you think about that? How do you see that working in a family, in a community, in an organization where there's just multiple people? Village Keeper is a very beautiful Canadian film. It is set in Toronto and it's very, very Toronto. I think because of that, it was very real to me. It didn't feel like I was watching a movie. It felt more like a documentary. And also because you recognize the places and you recognize the stations and the names, it feels much more personal and then speaks to me much more personally. So if you live in the city, this is something I think you definitely want to see, definitely want to watch. It will make you cry, I think, and I hope that it also brings wholeness in some way. I'm really excited about the next video. It's going to be exploring more of what I had to say in this video, but I think it'll be fun. So take care of yourselves and I'll see you in my next video.